Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review the new horror film, Noseeums. And this film is from director Raven Carter, and from writers Jason Michael Anthony and Hendrik Joseph. And this film focuses on the story of what begins as a spring break getaway spirals into a nightmare when something ancient and vengeful awakens beneath the surface and a past that refuses to stay dead. And wow, that is a pretty generic sounding kind of synopsis of what this film is about, because you have a young black woman who goes off to spend the spring break at this group with her group of friends, leaving her one black friend behind and hanging out with these two white girls and this young Asian girl who's her roommate. And the one white girl is super rich, and it's her father's big, he has this big plot of land and this cabin out in the woods, and they go there, and our young protagonist starts having these visions of slaves being lynched or all this violence against them, and uncovers a dark truth about this land and her own connection to these entities, these people from the past that are coming in and taking over her in some of her darkest nightmares. And this film is a very lean film. It's about 80 minutes, and it's not exactly the deepest or most impactful horror film. I feel like a lot of the horror elements are a bit too subdued and a little, they don't have that punch. They don't have that gonna hook you and really give you a good scare. I think the visuals, there's some imagery here that is unnerving and shocking. It's just, I don't know if Carter was able to really find that impact of those scares. They're solid, but they're not going to be, this isn't the kind of film that's going to be leaving you terrified because of the scares. The subject matter might, to be honest, but from the actual scares that are delivered, it just doesn't hit quite on the level that you're hoping for. And from a filmmaking standpoint, this is a rock solid little film with a lower budget, and they certainly are making the most of it. There's some elements that seem a little bit a little too low budgeted, but there's a lot of elements that, for such a small budget, I think it does come together. I do think that the characters are a little too one-dimensional in many ways. It just, you look at each of these characters and they feel like they're serving a specific point to the story, and less of feeling like real fleshed out characters. I think our protagonist, I think she's an interesting enough character, but everybody else around her, and it's the messaging and the thematic elements of racism and generational trauma and stuff like that is a little too right there in your face. And I don't think there's enough nuance to really make it feel deeper and more profound, but it's there, it's in your face, and these are topics that still need to be confronted now. And the whole situation with this young woman whose father owns this land, she's terrible. And the young actress that brings her to life does such a great job of making her so unlikable. And just, she has that vibe. And I think the film has a nice anchoring performance from the protagonist that keeps us connected to the film. And when those moments of swarms of flies showing up, or shocking jump scare of oh my god, turning around and you just see somebody being lynched and stuff like that, there's enough of it to make this an enjoyable film, and there's enough substance. Even if it's not the deepest exploration of these topics in film, it's still something, and I think Carter does a fine job of putting in enough of solid scares, solid thematic work, enough to elevate this pretty basic plot. It's enough there to make this a solid horror experience, but it's not going to be one that you're going to be writing home to or going around and being like, oh, you really need to check out this movie. But those are my thoughts on Noseeums. Let me know what you think and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.